Thank you very much. I'm Dr. Ray Garendi. Welcome to Living Right with Dr. Ray. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to thank you. Thank you. Excuse me a second. I know. I want to thank. It's a producer. It's a producer program. We don't have time? Generic thank you. Thanks to all of you. We got a jam show today. Of course, Father Larry Richards is coming in. He's going to talk about welcoming children versus contraception. We've got a real child psychologist, Dr. Rachel. She's not a real doctor, but she's going to tell us how to raise mom and dad. We're going to the mailbag. A role play today. I'm a shrink. Everybody always says, you're a shrink. You should know why a child does that. I have learned to be content with being ignorant. Let's get started. You've heard psychologists tell you, child rearing experts, very important to be consistent. You must be consistent in raising children. I think perseverance is a more necessary quality. Perseverance. Hanging for weeks and months and years in doing this. Alexander, Bell, you guys embarrass me when I'm on the phone. I can't even talk on the phone anymore. I sound like a wild person when somebody calls here. We have a new house rule. From this point forward, if you get loud, rude, intrusive, nasty when I'm on the phone, and by the way, that does include this. I can't even carry on a conversation on the phone from this point forward. If you get rude, disrespectful, I will simply excuse myself from the call, escort you to your rooms for the rest of the call. I'll come and get you when it's time. Now, how long would a parent have to do this before she gets peace on the phone? I have no idea. 15 times? 35. 235. I don't know. And folks, it doesn't matter. I always tell my clients the easiest part of my job is giving you ideas. I can give you 20 ideas for every piece of misbehavior you tell me about. You know what I can't give you, Dad? I can't give you the will to do it. That's where it breaks down for most of us. It's not that we don't know what to do, we don't do what we know. You won't get away with this, and don't do it. Oh, hello, Monsignor. How are you? Okay, yeah. Of course, we'd be flattered to be the role model family for the church children loving. Monsignor, could you just excuse me for 1 second, please? I'm going to have a little love chat with the children. Yeah, they're precious blessings from God. You know how that is. Love them desperately. Wish we had 19 or 20 of them. Okay. Well, we love you too, Monsignor. They're getting a little antsy. Yeah, we're half hour past Rosary Circle. You know, hey, still praying on our knees in Aramaic, except when we levitate. Okay. All right. We'll be right back. I'll just get them on the extension here. Yeah. Peace, harmony, Aquarius. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Get away from her, you little worm. I'm going to rip your tongue out of your throat, wrap it around the fence. What's that, Monsignor? No, that's the neighbor lady. She always talks to her children like that. We will pray for her. She does need prayer. We've asked her to come. She won't come. I don't think she likes kids. The essence of discipline is time. Long periods of time. That is... You can't get away. That is a main ingredient in being a great parent. Years. And you know, nowadays, you have more than that because they leave when they're 20 or 21 for 4 months. and then they come back just to tease you. Tell you what, let's go to audience questions. Your questions about the stuff of life. What do we have? Let's see, do we have some questions? Okay. Yes, ma'am. Your name?
Sharon.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi. We'll start off with a good one. You're a man, and I'm married to a man. And
you're married to a man, good.
Yes,
that's
and
good.
I see that sometimes men get defensive if you correct
them.
them.
Get out. We don't. There's no way.
And
I'm not going to listen to that. Excuse me, next question.
And so I want to know what tactics your wife uses to indirectly correct you.
Tactics my wife uses.
No, wisdom.
Wisdom. To indirectly. All right, now, if you say indirectly, what you're really saying is unspoken. I have learned in my years of husbandhood to hear what my wife does not say. For example, after most things that my wife says to me, there is an unspoken, a term of endearment, shall we say, Sharon? Ray, would you please pick your pants up off the floor? And then there's this unspoken, idiot. Ray, I told you we weren't going to make it on time, idiot. Indirectly. You know what my wife does to me? She'll kick me under the table. She'll grab my knee and start to dig her nails into my knee. She'll look at me and go, and I think
you get the message.
I get the message, but you know, in a good marriage, you're not threatened by it. In a good marriage, somebody will say to me sometimes on the radio program, "You were wild," and I said, "Yeah, I know. My wife wasn't listening today, so the governor was off." My wife has a natural tendency to tone me down, and I need that real bad, real bad.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Sir, your name?
Ron.
Ron.
All right, you're the shrink. I've listened to you. I've disciplined my child one time.
One time?
It didn't work. Do I give up? What do I do?
They used to have something in psychology called one trial learning. You use dogs, you use rats, and you do one thing and the rat would get it. Now, most rats being smarter than children, I mean, not always, but children don't get it in one time. Humans don't get it in one time. How many of you have gone to the priest in confession? Bless me, Father, for, well, look, why don't you just bless me, okay? I used to have sins, but I got rid of most of them. And if I get a new sin, it usually takes me 2 months, 3 months, and I usually conquer it, so I really don't have a whole lot to tell you. I'll just tell you what my wife does, okay? That'll kind of take up. Are you like me? Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. Look, here, let me save you some time. I'll give you the list. It's the same stuff I've been saying the last 40 years. Ron, how come we are allowed to take 40 years to learn something, but if a child doesn't get it in once or 5 times, we go, what's wrong with this child? Obviously incorrigible. Obviously all. It's his father's genetics. It's his father's genetics. I knew it. Let's take one more. Sir, your name, sir?
Richard.
Hi, Richard.
I was brought up Catholic. I have 4 brothers and a sister. All 4 of my brothers left the Catholic Church. My sister and I are the only ones still in. When my brothers left, they had some misconceptions about Catholicism. And I'm trying to tell them or get them to realize they really didn't know what they were leaving at the time. But I'm not having too much success. What advice do you have for me, if any?
Very few people leave the church because they understand her. Lots leave because they don't. Is it a question of they didn't understand what the church teaches, or they didn't like what the church teaches? They didn't like what somebody in the church did. Which is it, Rich?
Probably they didn't like what the church was teaching.
So they understood it, but they didn't necessarily agree with it.
Right.
If they're open to talk, you got to be a little bit of a shrink. You got to find out what's in their head. Just ask. Be kind of like Columbo. Remember the Detective Columbo? He was brilliant. He would trap people with his ignorance. You know, just one more thought. My wife always buys potted plants. And I've noticed that when you buy a potted plant, sometimes they shed leaves. Now, there was a leaf over there near where you said you weren't. And he just plays the part of, help me, explain to me. Do that with your brothers. Hey, help me out. Explain to me, what exactly was it that when you left the church, that was it? That was the straw. I just want to know. I just want to try to understand. If you get them to explain, sometimes you make them think. If you try to put your thoughts into their head, they're gonna do this. They're gonna pull back like this. But just kind of, I have to do that with my clients. Many of my clients will tell me things that I'm shocked, sometimes revulsed. But I have to sit and try to figure out exactly why they think that way. What was it? Sharon, right?
Yes.
Sharon, you had an interesting question. So in reparation for your question, I would like you to be my next volunteer. Volunteer! Would you come up here with me, Sharon?
Okay. You try to do a good deed and...
You are my 12-year-old daughter.
Right.
Okay? I am your very, very young-looking father.
Okay.
You have carved your initials inside a heart with some boy's name in my vinyl siding.
Ooh.
A year after I put it up. I am confronting you because I am baffled by this. You ready?
Okay. All right.
Bubbles. Why would you carve your initials into that beautiful aluminum siding? Not even in the back, in the front, right next to the doorbell. I'm talking to you, young lady. I want to know what is the reason for those initials? Why would you do this? Yes, those initials. Yeah, those ones you're pointing at. I'm going to ask you again, and I want an answer. Okay. I think we're having trouble communicating here. Did you carve him in because you like this boy that you don't even know? Did you carve him in because you want to be like Bambi, who's got her initials carved anyplace? Did you want to show me how well you could write cursive? You see what's happening here? She is not going to give me an answer. I, as a parent, think, I want to know. I've got to know why. If I know why, I can determine what to do about this. But she's a kid. And her view is, I'm not saying a word. I am pleading the fifth. If I give him any answer, he's going to get more irate. What is she going to say to me? She's going to say, well, I liked him last week. I left an opening to put new initials. Let's try this again. Are you ready? No. You stay right here. I'm not done with you, young lady.
Okay.
Those are your initials. Bubbles, I recognize the handwriting, okay? Those are your initials. So I'm only going to ask you one time. If you tell me why, if you give me a decent reason, it may affect what I do about it. I'll tell you I'm going to do something about it anyway, sweetheart, but it may affect what I do. Why did you do that?
I thought he'd like me better.
Well, that's at least a try, and I appreciate the honesty, but here's what we're going to do about it.
Wow.
Thank you, Sharon.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
You see what happens here? We get caught up in wanting the why of a kid's behavior. I will give you the 3 most common whys, and these are very psychologically sophisticated. You could take notes if you want to. The impulse hit me. I thought for sure I could get away with it. And pretty much everybody else I know has tried it. That's about 80% of the whys. You don't need to know why to act. This is from Emily in Cincinnati. Dr. Ray, how do I deal with in-laws who are so different from me? For example, they differ in culture, language, parenting ideas, role of husband and wife. I can't seem to get past our many differences to see the good that is in them. There's always a scary thought to an email like that. What if you're not the easy to get along What if you're not the easy to get along with in-law? You ever notice that? It's like, well, you know, they're just tough to get along with. They're just different from me. Well, maybe that's because you're a bit tough to get along with. Now, I don't know that, but I would also say this. She said something interesting. To see the good that is in them. Well, she knows there's good in them. And even if there isn't that much good in them, we are asked by our faith to essentially look at them and see the face of Christ. So, given that, I would tell her this. Ignore what you don't like about them. Quit dwelling on it. They are who they are. What you need to do is to let that stuff go in here, out here, and you said, focus on the good in them. Or at the very least, don't get upset about the bad in them. This is a matter of the will here. This is a matter of the will. This is not is there a technique I can use to like them better? No, probably not. Probably not. All right. When we come back, Living Right with Dr. Ray, we will have Rose Malavolti, a mother of 21 children, 17 of whom are adopted, many with special needs. The woman basically told me, Dr. Ray, you have 10 children? Well, that's a nice start. We will have Rachel, our real child psychologist. We will have senior moments. Father Larry is here. He's going to talk to us. We got all kinds of stuff coming up. Don't go anywhere. We'll have coffee and donuts later to keep you folks here. We'll be right back. Thanks for joining us.
God really desires for each one of us to be used, and used greatly and used powerfully. You know, I hate to offend people, but I think in general we become real wimps.
I think the number one problem in the world today is just selfishness, huh? People want what they want, when they want it, and no more. And I think that's a core reality entering into all these things, is the selfishness.
Back by popular demand, and I wonder if that popular demand consists of calls from any one of her 21 children, is Rose Malavolti. Rose and her husband Al are the parents of 21 children, 4 natural, 17 adopted. Rose, I have so many questions left to ask you. I know you had 4. I saw you in Reader's Digest. You were pictured there with your 8 children that you adopted at the same time. Your family of 12 was there with the big crucifix behind you. Nobody airbrushed it out on any other interviews, did they?
Nope, it's been on Oprah, Today Show, Good Morning America, Catholic Digest, Reader's Digest.
Okay. People could say, Rose, as a little girl, you were moved at age 8 to adopt. You want to take care of children. All right. You adopted 8 on top of your 4. Okay, Rose. That's enough. So what is this, like eating potato chips? You just keep eating one more?
Some people think so.
How did this come about?
Well, you know, again, this dream was planted deep in my heart by our Lord. and we got to that number of 12. And shortly after that, our church put out a petition for people to go to Haiti to help. And every time they asked, I'd say to my husband, you should go. And he'd say, I don't want to go.
I could
And-
understand why you'd say that, Rose. You got to read between the lines.
Right. So after 3 times that happening, he finally said, why do you think I should go? And I said, because many people sign up to go and they have good hearts but not skill, and you can do anything. So he went to the meeting and decided to go. While he was there, he brought to Mother Teresa's orphanage a large amount of baby clothes that had come from the States. And they asked him to hold this infant. They took this infant out of the bed.
See, that's the tactic.
The baby was very sick, and they were trying to clean the bed. And he loved that baby and held that baby, and that baby died just a few moments later. It starved to death. And we stayed with Mother Teresa's. I did twice with Alan. Alan was over there more times than I. But in the times that we were there, 1 to 2 children every day starved to death. And when you have 2 children a day die from starvation, you have many others that are hovering near death.
All ages?
All ages, mostly very small. The orphanage took infant through 5.
And then after 5, what happened?
Well, some very different stories, but none of them good. And so we were sent pictures of 2 little boys. We went over there to see them. We worked in the orphanage a week, and it was the last day, and I turned to my husband and I said, Alan, we have to go, so we have to decide who and how many. And he said, okay, how about 60? And I looked at him and I said, 60, I'm good, but I'm not that good. I think he was setting me up. And
So it's the old bargaining tactic. You start out with a high number, and then you were happy with 9 more.
So we committed to 4. And then during that next year, you cannot pick something that didn't go wrong. There were anti-American riots when we were there, flipping cars, burning American flags. He at one time was stuck in a crowd of about 10,000, you know, and he was 2 crackers in the audience. You know, many things. When great good can come, great evil often opposes it. But we prayed and prayed for it's kind of a long story, but for this bishop to come through. We ended up accidentally getting the papal nuncio, who took on the president of the country. But literally the last day that the president was going to be president, the documents were going to be any good, $23,000 worth of work. We were sitting in the Minister of Justice's office hours before all those documents were null and void. And we had...
You made it?
We had several missionary of charity's sister. The Minister of Justice explained he wasn't going to co-sign and told us to leave. No one was allowed to speak. And Sister Ajaya, the head sister, got in his face and laid him out only as a religious sister can do.
She's a ruler?
And she said, no, she said, you have signed their death warrant. Those boys will die. Die in my country. And she told it like it was. He finally signed a document. They ran it to the presidential palace. He didn't like that document, came back. This story's long and complicated, but American Airlines shut down flights. We were on the last plane out of that country with those 4 boys.
Many of you may be thinking, all right, this is Rose's story. They are exceptional. However, I know some of you out there are thinking, how do I know if I've been called to take in a child either with special needs or that simply needs a mom and dad? Okay, Rose, you've got to answer that for the people watching. You've got to give them your best advice on, I don't know if I can do this. My children are raised. Things are going good. I don't want to upset the apple cart. I don't know if God wired me to take this on.
Well, first of all, I have to say that God really desires for each one of us to be used, and used greatly and used powerfully. You know, I hate to offend people, but I think in general we become real wimps. I look at the life my grandmother lived, the hardships that they embraced, and we tend to think almost everything is hard. I think God wants to do amazing things with every one of us, but certainly that doesn't mean every person was called to take 21 kids. So it takes prayer, it takes discernment, and I think Mother Teresa said it best. She said, you know, pray as if everything depends upon it, and work as if everything depends upon that, and God shows his will by how things work out. And Elizabeth Ann Seton said, live simply so others simply can live. And so there's a lot of doing without, there's a lot of difficulty, there's a lot of hardship, but we were put on this earth
The
to...
last 10 times I've seen you, you've had the same outfit on.
Yeah,
I just
well.
didn't want to say that. You know, people oftentimes say, I don't know if I'm called, and these are good Christian folks. And I respond, God wrote it down. He said, he who welcomes a little one in my name welcomes me. This is faith that is pure and undefiled before the Lord, that we take care of the widows and the orphans in their distress. So, Rose, what would you say to somebody who's scared? I don't know if I can do it.
I think you'd be stupid not to be scared, but you cannot rely on your own ability. You know, when my back's against the wall, I say, right, Lord, I was faithful. Again, Mother Teresa quotes so often, we're not called to be successful. We're called to be faithful.
What if it blows up?
Well, it often does. It often does. Raising kids isn't clean. You know, it's not simple. I have to do the very best that I can. And I have to make sure my priorities are straight. My very best isn't necessarily a cell phone. It's loving them, it's evangelizing them, it's setting a high bar, it's educating them so they can be useful tools in the hand of God.
So you are saying that you have learned to not take it personal. If a child at 22 or 24 or 27 turns his back on the faith you tried to give him, on you, goes out and causes problems for himself and other people, you don't have time to look at that and be agonizing over it because you still have other children who need a fully functioning mom and dad.
Well, yes and no. First of all, I mean, a priest really helped me a lot. My 3 of my homegrown version children, 2 are doctors and one's becoming a lawyer. So, you know, you can hold that up and say, oh, this is what I want for all of them. But that's not God's will in everybody's life. There should be successes in different ways. Secondly, you know, I think Yogi Berra in baseball says it best, it ain't over till it's over. And, you know, a priest yelled at me, 2 wonderful confessional stories. I went in and was crying in a confessional, not an uncommon event for me. And this priest started laughing. And I thought, why? Why are you laughing and I'm crying? Tell me if I've done something wrong. He said, who is going to suffer to get 21 kids to heaven if you're not? I wiped the tears, square the shoulders, and I thought, bring it on. You know.
Walked out of there with your Wonder Woman outfit on?
Well, I don't know about that, but, you know, it takes a lot of prayer. And kids never need love more than when they don't deserve it. And so we need to love them through that. We need to pray through that. Tough love. I don't, you know, they're not staying in my house living extremely sinful lives, but I never quit, you know.
Kids. Kids never need love more than when they don't deserve it. I gotta remember that one. Rose, I can't thank you enough for visiting with us.
My privilege, my joy.
Cannot thank you enough.
You know, we got to give the big guy the credit, right? And I'm just a tool. I'm an instrument. That's it. He does the work if we let him. Yay, God.
Well, you've been hearing from nothing but grown-ups. Okay? We've scheduled some real child psychologists for this program, and you're about to hear the opinions and the viewpoints and the comments on what we grown-up types might not be doing so correctly. My wife says I'm not a child psychologist. I'm a childish psychologist. Well, we have a real child psychologist, Rachel, coming up now. What's the main way you get in trouble?
Snippiness, probably.
Snippy. Okay, do a snippy on me. Give me a snippy. What? Okay, wait. I'll be the parent. You be the snippy. You ready? I'll be the snipper. You be the snippy. No, Rachel. No. It is 9:30. I know you want to watch the rest of this. That's it. You stayed up late last night. I let you stay up way too late as it is, Rachel. You're grumpy in the morning. You're going to go to bed. It is 9:30. You should have been in bed 20 minutes ago, Rachel. You're stalling me. Okay, good.
But Mom.
Oh, wait. You got to have the arms crossed? Mm-hmm. That's part of the whole image?
Yeah.
Now, but mom, then what? It's just but mom.
Yeah, usually.
Does it work?
No.
How can you tell a parent means it? How do you know what? That's it. They mean it. Forget it. No amount of snippiness is going to make any difference. All the arm crossing in the world isn't going to do it. How can you tell?
Well, she'll have the firmness in her voice, and she'll have this thing in her eyes.
This
that
thing in her eyes, like a hair?
No, it's sort of like a warning.
A warning in her eyes.
Yeah.
Can you do it? Can you show me the warning look?
Well, I'll try.
All right, give me your best shot. That looks like she's saying, I can't believe you're thinking of doing that, Rachel. Is that kind of what she's conveying?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be your mom and you tell me when I'm hitting the volume. Okay, you ready? Rachel, that is it. I am telling you right now, that is it. You need to get to bed. Rachel!
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so I gotta get up pretty good. So you've sort of gotten used to her volume then. You can take a certain amount of volume and not react. Okay, you really want something bad. You so much want to do this. You'd like a cell phone. Or you really want to sleep over at night with one of your friends. Or you'd so much like her to buy you this one top. You saw it, oh, you just love it, it's so cute and it's wonderful. Of course, your brothers, they don't care about clothes as long as it doesn't have the ketchup stains on it from 2 days ago. Mother says no. Dad says no. Of course, Dad, he doesn't get involved in these clothing decisions, does he? Not too much?
No.
Dads don't even know what color goes with what color.
Yeah.
How do you convince your mother that this decision of hers is not only not in agreement with you, but it's wrong? How do you do it?
Well, we would usually bribe her with massages.
The old massage. This seems to be a big one here with some of the kids I've talked to on this program. Massage.
Yeah.
What kind of massage?
Usually foot massages or back massages.
Okay. Now, we parents aren't all that smart. But if I got a kid who wants to give me a foot massage, and then every time they do this, they kind of ask me for something I've already said no for, after about the third foot massage, I'd start to realize, hey, this is a strategy. How do you keep her from realizing that?
Well, she usually already knows it because it's been going on for years, actually. But she loves foot massages so much. She really
So
does.
she'll take the foot massage, and then does she say no? Then she goes, no, Rachel, that's it. Thanks for the massage.
No, actually, sometimes we do convince her. But if it's something she's already put her foot down for, like we've had this.
Well, wait a minute, now no pun
conversation.
intended. She's put her foot down on the massage. Okay, no pun intended. When you have your own children, are you going to be stricter than your parents or less strict?
Probably more strict.
More strict than your mom and dad, who I assume you already think are quite strict?
Yeah, I think they're pretty strict, but they aren't the strictest parents, really.
Don't tell them that. You better hope they just don't see this. Why do they know us so well? Rachel was 12, 13 years old. She has her parents all sized up. We look at them, as we said earlier in the show, I ask you why, and I can't figure out why you do what you do. It is as though Rachel was taking notes. So do this. Of course, she's a girl. Girls figure this out by time they're 4. Boys are 28. Are you my mom? Really? Since when? Is this treachery? Sir, I was watching you analyze this. You had that analytical look on your face.
I observed Fran, my wife and now grandmother, how the grandchildren can manipulate her. And
Well, wait. You were itching to say something about her. I think I got it.
No. But sometimes as a grandfather, I kind of let go. And but when we're babysitting, I always seem to have to step in sometimes to get them to go to bed. And I usually use a very firm voice, but I don't overreact. And that seems to be the key. I have to, don't say as much, don't preach, just get them to bed. And that helps Fran out. But as I go back to our own children, I see that I was more overreactive. I seem to get more angry.
Your hormones are dying.
Yeah, my hormones are dying. Maybe that's it.
Or your hormones are dying.
Or maybe
I
just know better. And I see what I've done before sometimes was not as effective.
All right. You bring up the point. Do words work? Well, no. When you're younger, you got a little more vinegar in you. You're going to react. On the other hand, did you notice what this gentleman said? He said, I kind of am a little more loose until. Bill Cosby says, when he looked at his own parents, he said, these are not the same people who raised me. These are old people now trying to get into heaven. Your point, I think, is this. As grandparents, we can afford a little bit of looseness. We're not day in and day out trying to put character into a child, although we help. On the other hand, even we, as kind as we are as grandparents, have to have our limits.
Right.
They do have to go to bed, they do have to eat, and they do have to hose off their shoes before they come in the house so they don't set off the fire alarm. Living Right with Dr. Ray when we come back. Catechism Wisdom with Father Larry Richards. We're going to talk about contraception and welcoming children. Stick with us.
Every time we say yes to the will of God, we always bring peace in life. You have nothing to be afraid of. It's a call of trust.
You have to decide, will you charge rent on a sliding scale? Will you say, if you're going to live here, I need X, Y, and Z in the way of help and work? Who has true wisdom about living right? The Catholic Church, as founded by Jesus Christ some 2,000 years ago, or modern, shifting, secular notions? Well, given by what book I'm holding, you can probably tell what I think. For Catechism Wisdom, I'm Dr. Ray Garendi. With me, as always, Father Larry Richards, pastor of St. Joseph's Church, Bread of Life Community in Erie, Pennsylvania, as well as, I was corrected off air.
It was.
World-renowned.
World-renowned.
Galactic, universal.
And by the way, I have the most beautiful church in the world in Erie, PA. Come and see.
It is true. I've been there. Father Larry, let me read to you what the Catechism of the Catholic Church says in 1652. Section.
Wow,
They didn't
that's
say
a big
it,
one.
1652,
Okay.
the section.
Okay.
Children are the supreme gift of marriage and contribute greatly to the good of the parents themselves. In this sense, the fundamental task of marriage and family is to be at the service of life. Father Larry, I had my children, thank you very much. I have two, one boy, one girl. Perfect, this is the way I want it. Why can't I just stop there? Years and years and years and years of conventional wisdom says there's too many babies, there's too many people, we're just going to all use up the earth's resources.
No, I think the number one problem in the world today is just selfishness, huh? People want what they want, when they want it, and no more. And I think that's a core reality entering into all these things, is the selfishness. But more than that, it's trying to be God of your own life. It's saying, I'll decide what I want. And I think that when you come before God, God has to be Lord of every part of your life, or He's Lord of no part of your life. You can't sit there and say, well, God's Lord of my salvation, and God's Lord of when I need something, but God's not Lord of my money, He's not Lord of how many children I have, He's not Lord of my sexual life. God's only Lord of what I let Him be Lord of.
Well, then you're the Lord of God.
Exactly. That's exactly the point. The God is God of everything.
But there's too
or
many
He's God of
kids. There's too
nothing.
many kids. There's too many people. Everybody has said
Sure.
this. All the wisdom has said this.
And again, I think that what it comes down to, too, is just this lack of trust. that God knows what's best for us, that if we give this all to God and we co-create with God and we're saying, God, I only want what you want, then God isn't going to give us like 150 children as they think, oh, a good Catholic family has 20 children over there. They're really good Catholic. No, no, no. You cooperate with God.
Yeah, but I can't pay for college. What about car
Again, it comes to a
insurance?
trust. If God is God, God has plenty of money. And if you try to be God, then you're going to have to try to be in charge of your own money. But God's in charge, not us, and we got to trust him.
G.K. Chesterton said this. When someone says there are too many people in the world, ask that person this question. How are you so sure you are not one of the too many?
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody who says there's too many people, there's too many children, isn't one who says, I'll leave.
And again,
I'll exit.
they have proven that so many times wrong. You can take all the world's population, every single person, and put them in the state of Texas with a couple feet around every person. And everybody in the world can fit in one state of Texas. So again, it's this propaganda we hear from people who are not of God and try to teach us what God, okay, God, if we let God be in charge, he's not going to know what's best. God knows what's best. He's the one who created the world.
My choice is that I don't want to have 5 kids if God decides to give me 5 kids.
Mm-hmm.
I decide how many children I want, and doesn't, in a sense, that make me smarter than God? If he says, I want to give you a child, but you will contracept it, or out of existence, or you will abort it, or you will avoid it. I want to give you a child, but...
I always go back to Mary. When we cooperate with the will of God, we always bring life to the world. When we say no to the will of God, we always bring death and division into the world. That only when we go against God's will are we going to bring destruction. But every time we say yes to the will of God, we always bring peace and life. You have nothing to be afraid of. It's a call to trust.
I've been a psychologist for over 30 years. Yes, it's true, I started in kindergarten. I've talked with thousands of parents. I have yet to hear a parent tell me, I had too many children. Father Larry, I have heard countless numbers of parents tell me, I wish I had more children.
You got that. You'll never regret a child, ever.
For Catechism Wisdom, I'm Dr. Ray, as always, here with my friend, and in many respects my spiritual mentor, or person-tor, Father Larry Richards. Again, thank you for joining us on Catechism Wisdom. I have 10 kids. Why am I here? This studio is quieter and it smells better. I have a theory. See, you get a bunch of kids, you don't pay any taxes. That's one benefit. Another benefit is, as my kids are getting older, I'm sending them all out to get $8 an hour jobs. 10 children, that's $80 an hour. That's $160,000 a year. We can all live well on $160,000 a year. There are only, I think, 3 sins left in secular culture: smoking, spanking, and having more than 2.12 children. Those are the 3 sins. Now, I was looking at the audience, and I try to study faces. You know, we shrinks, we pick up nonverbal stuff. There's a woman over here who had this dazed kind of look on her face, like, where am I? What am I doing here? What's my name? And I realized that probably indicated you had a number of children. Am I right?
You're right.
Here, you take that here.
And we just finished Thanksgiving with our 16 grandchildren all there.
You let them in the house.
We did.
On a holiday?
Yes.
The tree wasn't up, was it?
No.
They'll kick the tree over.
That's right.
How many children did you have?
We have 7 children.
7 children. Now, are they grown?
In a way.
So some of them are husbands. All right. Here's my
Yes.
question for you.
All right.
Okay?
Yes.
pull this up here, young lady.
All right. Okay.
When you were on your third pregnancy, did people make their ever so cutesy comments? Well, do you know how this is happening? I'm glad it's you and not me. Don't you have a TV? Are you Catholic or something? Did that start?
It started probably about that time, and it's continued even from up till now when they ask me how many children I had, and they go, "Oh." But I remember one
What's
phone
that
call.
reaction? Kind of like Dr. Rachel there.
Yes. But I remember one phone call from a friend of ours, an old-time friend, and when I told her we were having our third child, she said, "Are you a rabbit?"
Thanks. Notice the demeaning. Notice the attitude. We make fun of pregnant mothers. You can't make fun of anybody about anything except a woman who is with child. She's fair game now. Back when the church reemphasized her teaching that we are to welcome children in the 60s. I certainly don't remember this, but my wife does. Uh-oh, there's that look again. I know that look. I think it has idiot at the end of it. The outcry was enormous. We're going to bury the world in children. That's what's going to happen. And the Pope said, no, that's not what's going to happen. We have to welcome gifts of God. If we don't, our human nature, our fallen human nature will take over. Nobody, the wisest of the secular people anticipated that if we gave people the power to limit the gifts of God, within a couple of generations, we would have 80 countries in the world who now have a negative birth rate, who are not replacing themselves, who basically have decided, as Father Larry said, I'm here, I'm living, I've got a good life, and I don't want to share it. Who would have known? Never before in the history of the world. This moment is for seniors, of which I'm pretty close to being one. This is from Mary in Omaha, Nebraska. Dr. Ray, I have a question about my 32-year-old son. He just finished his degree in December. 32. He crammed 4 years of college into 14. He is now working, but not making a very good hourly wage. He is also working a very part-time job. I was wondering if I'm letting him plead the I am broke card too much with me. He has asked for $75 twice for a vacation and a trip that he is taking. Mom can't go, but he gets to go. Mom, you got some money for the trip? I obliged. Now, we go out to eat on Sundays. I've been paying for that also. Am I enabling him? I'm starting to get annoyed with his behaviors and feel like I'm being a chump. Or in this case, is a woman, chumpette. He is caring and considerate in all other areas of our relationship. There's a lot of this going on out there. Not just the economy. It's a matter of, I can live pretty well here. I don't have to make that much. I don't have to work that hard. And I really don't have to pay that many bills because how many channels do we get on our HD TV? 562? I can't afford that if I live out on my own. This is good. I'm seeing an awful lot of this as a psychologist. And one of the areas where I tell parents is, you've got to decide, how long are you going to go with this? Most kids will not say, Father, I'm realizing that I'm kind of freeloading off of you, and I've decided it's time to stop. Now, I want to pay you some back rent money for the last 14 years that I've lived here. No, most kids are going to, as this goes on, be forced by your decision. You have to decide, will you charge rent on a sliding scale? Will you say, if you're going to live here, I need X, Y, and Z in the way of help and work? You cannot parent in fear. You cannot parent with the idea that if I establish conditions, who knows what he'll do? You parent like that, give him the keys, simply say, your place now. Do you mind if I live here? I will pay you some rent. I have a wonderful time being with you folks. You're here, you're wonderful parents, you're wonderful people. Well, either that or you have no life whatsoever. Our thanks. What did we learn today? Well, you don't have to know why a child does something to take action. Matter of fact, as a parent, you live in ignorance a pretty good amount of the time, and you got to live with that. Why? I don't know. Father Larry says children are a gift from God. That's what the church teaches. Do we want the gift? Don't we? Are we learning? Dr. Rachel says, I figured out my mom when I was in the womb. I was in the womb going, doesn't mean they're bad. It simply means they are attuned to us. And why wouldn't they be? Why wouldn't they be attuned? We're their only game in town. And by the way, living right doesn't just help you live better. It saves you money. If you follow the advice I gave you on freeloading 28-year-olds or 32-year-olds or 36-year-olds, I'm going to save you some money. You can get out of this with still nice stuff. And they can come over on Thanksgiving, and they can, and make them pay for the turkey. I'm Dr. Ray Garendi. This is Living Right with Dr. Ray. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. You people are wonderful. You make the show. So, till next time, walk with God. You got kids? Hold them tight by the hand, except some of those older ones. You hold them tight by the hand, they don't leave. See ya. Next time on Living Right with Dr. Ray, sticker systems. Do they work? Don't they? Who are they for? Do you obey your parents? Catechism says so. But how old do you have to be to always obey your parents? Do kids act up to get attention? That seems to be kind of a nonsense notion. And EWTN favorite, Dale Ahlquist.